Hey everyone, back tuning into today's video. Going to have a look at the weather next 8 to 10 days. In today's video, this takes up towards the middle of June, can you believe? Going towards the 15th of the month. Actually, day 10 is the 14th of June, so we're almost at the middle of the month with this update. It looks like we're going to be having a lot of high pressure influences actually over the next week to 10 days. We've got some further storms coming up tomorrow. If you're wondering what's going on with the storms, I'll be updating Storm Watch later on today. We'll do a specific video looking at the risk of further storms down in the southeast tonight and tomorrow. So if you're a bit of a convective fan and enjoy thunderstorms, keep an eye on the Storm Watch page later on today. But beyond that, high pressure going to be dominating really for much of next week by the look of it, so it should keep it mainly dry. The high pressure tending to be centred to the west of the country though, which means temperatures aren't going to be particularly exciting once we get this sudden warm push of temperatures out of the way, sort of by the end of Friday. Overall, temperatures actually looking quite coolish, really. So I'll have a look at all the charts in a moment. Before I go on with that, though, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages at dazzleviz.com. Have a browse with widgets, any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go off and read the article, and thanks very much for doing that. Before I just start off with the Central England temperature from Hadley, as we're around halfway through the year now. These are the yearly Central England temperatures going back to the 1700s. I think go right back to around 1760, something like that, with this graph. Each blue bar here is representing an individual year. So, for instance, this coldest year within the entire graph is this one just here. And this is representing the year 1879. That was an exceptionally cold year with an anomaly around 2 degrees colder than average. It is the coldest year throughout the whole of this graph, which say goes back to the 1700s. What we're really interested in, though, is right at this very end of the chart. This bar just here, that is last year's Central England temperature. It's the warmest year on record within this graph. 2014 was the warmest year on record by quite some margin, actually. The previous warm year being 2006, which is that one just there, and it was fairly significantly above that, to be honest. So that was the warmest year on record, but this green bar just here is for 2015. Now, obviously, this is provisional, and we're only halfway through the year, but you can see that 2015 so far is coming out significantly cooler than 2014. And this is something that I predicted at the start of the year. I said I thought it's very unlikely that we have a year in 2015 as warm as the year before 2014. And certainly up to this point, it appears that that is correct. We're significantly around a whole degree under last year's overall Central England temperature. But we have to bear in mind we're only halfway through the year this year, whereas last year's temperature encompasses, of course, the whole of the year. I think we're going to struggle to get up towards where it was in 2014. It's going to be a real struggle from where we are now to get another warmish year on record. But you can't entirely rule it out because, as I say, 2006 was the previous warmish year on record, and all of that year's warmth was really in the second half of the year. Up to June, from January to June 2006, it was relatively cool. Actually, it was only the second half of the year that the heat went absolutely crazy through July and September 2006, for example, incredibly warm months. However, we are not seeing signs at the moment, anyway, that the summer of 2015 is going to be as hot as it was in 2006. So with a cooler summer, I think we really are going to struggle to repeat what we did in 2006. I think overall, we are going to find 2015 coming out quite a lot cooler than 2014. We'll keep an eye on it, of course, as we go through the rest of the year. So let's get on with the weather for the next week to 10 days. We've got the 500 millibar height anomaly flow charts. We've got the E70UF here on the left, and the GFS is over on the right. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is now in atmosphere, but high pressure, low pressure being moved around by a jet stream running above. As I say, these are the mean flow charts for the next week to 10 days. This takes up to around the 14th of June, so getting up toward the middle of the month. Red extrapolates to high pressure, blue to low pressure. We can see that on both the charts we've got this ridge ridge of high pressure out to the west of the country, very similar to what we have through May, really. The ridge is there and it's northerly displaced, so this would normally be a sign of quite a warm pattern in the summer, actually. You would expect this high pressure to push over the country, maybe even get to the east, but the complicating factor still, as it was through May, is that we've got a relatively strong jet stream, particularly for the time of year, running just to the north and the northwest of the country. And as long as that jet stream remains quite strong and in that sort of position, we're going to struggle to really push that high pressure over the country and then get it to the east. You have to get the high pressure to the east to get the wind up from the south, of course. So with the air coming off the Atlantic and from a fairly northerly part of the Atlantic, temperatures are going to be struggling a little bit, I think, as we go through next week. Now, I have got this push up in the temperature coming up very briefly later today, overnight and into tomorrow. And you see that very nicely on the GFS temperature and precipitation on summer. So there is quite clearly that big push up in the temperature that is coming up. The red line here, of course, is the 30-year temperature average. So we're going significantly above average, particularly in the south. Just for a few hours, real blinking you miss it affair, but we are going significantly above average for a few hours over the next sort of 24 to 36 hours. But once we get that out of the way, by the time we get through to Saturday, you can see that the temperature on summers are back down below average, and they generally stay cooler than average then through the rest of next week. This is the dates along here. These are the dates, and we can see that as we get through towards the middle part of June, which is just there, we do start to see the temperature on summers pushing up again, going back towards average, although interestingly this increase in the temperature in the second half of the month possibly associated with an increase in rainfall as well. You see that precipitation spikes are coming back here in the second part of the ensemble. Once we get tomorrow's thunderstorms out of the way, which is these sort of spikes just here, actually quite a lot of dry weather through the weekend and much of next week. But as you get through to the second half of June, which is a long way out, it's in the unreliable time frame of the GFS model, but the signal is there for it to be turning wetter in the second half of the month. Now, the second half of June, always a very important time with events like Glastonbury and Wimbledon going on. So we're going to need to keep a very, very close eye on this, I think. If it is going to turn wetter after mid-month or around mid-month, we've got to keep an eye on it. It could have quite an impact on many of the events that are taking place in the second half of June. Now, the temperature anomaly for the coming week, despite this push up in the temperature that we've got over the next 24 to 36 hours, the temperature anomaly for the week overall is coming out cooler than average. So for the 4th to the 12th of June, we've got the blue colours here indicating cooler than average temperature anomalies continuing. The rainfall anomaly comes out drier than average. You can see that the wettest, but not desperately wet, but wettest conditions over next week is in the far north and northwest, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather coming up, and that's just with the high pressure centred to the west of the country, protecting us from those rain bands. So here's the GFS for Monday the 8th of June, and it really shows what we're looking at on the height anomaly. With the high pressure centred out to the west of the country, we're bringing the air around the top of the high pressure with a lot of cloud as well. Or potentially quite a lot of cloud as well coming around the top of that high pressure. And if you follow the isobars back, you see that the air originates from, say, southern Greenland, Iceland, that sort of area. So the air is going to be relatively cool coming around the top of that high pressure. And that continues into Tuesday as well, and on into Wednesday, trying to ridge that high pressure through the country and send it to the east, but it doesn't really come off. And overall, the high pressure remains centred just to the west of the country, 1,035 millibars, and the air continues to come around the top of that high pressure from a northerly type direction in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, this could be one of those weeks next week, but despite the fact that pressure is high at around 1,030 millibars, may have showers, showery rain, particularly early on in the week, coming around the top of that high pressure. So the eastern parts of the country, particularly on the North Sea coast, I wouldn't rule out some showers, maybe even a few bursts of rain, actually. one of those unusual situations where pressure is high, but it's still managing to find a way to rain. But it won't be a wet week by any means. With this high pressure dominating, we will have a lot of dry weather through the course of next week. Bad is the plus side, if you like dry weather, of course. A lot of crops growing now, so I'm sure farmers will be hoping to at least get some showers coming through to help the growth. But I think we'll have a lot of dry weather through next week. Now we go to day 10. Just signs there, by the time you get through to Sunday the 14th, that the pressure is beginning to weaken. The high pressure is still more or less in control, but I think the indications are there that it is breaking. And we saw it on the ensemble, didn't we? That as we get through to the second half of June, there's that increasing trend to bring rain in across the country. So, as I say, got to keep an eye on this. If the high pressure is going to break down after mid-month, it could turn a good deal more unsettled in the second half of June around all of those important events. The ECWS shows that high pressure out to west of the country again for the start of next week, bringing that air around from the north, so it will be cool and possibly quite cloudy as well. That goes on through the course of next week. Again, we're trying to send that high pressure over to the east of the country, and remember, we've got to get high pressure to the east of us to bring the air up from the south. So to bring the hot air up, we've got to get high pressure to the east. If it's centred to the west, we're going to keep the air coming off the Atlantic. But it is a mainly settled week through the course next week. A lot of dry weather. Won't be a heat wave, but it'll be very pleasant. But as we go through towards day 10, again, this is Sunday the 14th of June, and the signs are there once more that the pressure is beginning to weaken, low pressure beginning to show signs of starting to move in from the Atlantic Ocean, possibly indicating a more unsettled second half to June. The GM, the Canadian model, is in agreement. The high pressure is out to the west as we start next week, bringing those winds round from a northerly direction, so cool and possibly quite cloudy start of next week. High pressure dominates through most of next week, keeps it dry. In the main, there could be showers in the east. But day 10, again, here we go. Pressure is weakening by Sunday the 14th of June. Perhaps indications there that it's turning more unsettled for the second half of June. So in the long term, that will be what we've got to keep an eye on, whether it is indeed going to turn more unsettled in the second half of the month. In the shorter term, sort of the next week to 10 days, I think the weather's mainly set there. We've got these thunderstorms coming up tonight and into tomorrow. We'll deal with that on Storm Watch later. But once they're out of the way, there will be plenty of dry weather through the course of next week. It won't be a heat wave with high pressure centred generally to west. It's going to be quite coolish, but at least it'll be mainly dry. Towards mid-month, that's when we've got to look possibly for the signs of a break to a good deal more unsettled conditions. And we'll be looking at that in depth tomorrow with JMA Friday, because that will cover the whole of the coming month with the Japanese and the CFS model from America as well. So we'll be able to look at the extended range in more detail tomorrow. So come back for that. That's all for now. Come back to Storm Watch later. You've got to know what's happening with thunderstorms in the southeast tonight and tomorrow. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.